Perdóname. Is this enough to barter for that American tongue? I heard it can carve the memory out of anything until your throat calls the knife father. I heard you like the way it speaks. My name is Noel Quinones, and I am an Afro-Boricua performer, poet, and educator. As of recently, what's been inspiring me, or the content that I'm writing about, is my exploration of identity. So as I said before, I identify as Afro-Boricua. I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans come from kind of three different descendant of three different groups. So Spaniards, the indigenous people of the island of Puerto Rico, the Taínos, and Africans. And so everybody wants to talk about Spain because they want to talk about whiteness and royalty, and no one talks about the other two. So Afro-Boricua is my way of identifying that and standing by that and trying to explore that. And so right now what I'm writing about is kind of the pushback and the trauma and the pain that comes with identifying in that way, because it has not been easy.
I am the last elephant. Hear my
this interesting place where people I looked up to are becoming my mentors. So again, as a Latino poet and writer, Denise Froman is an amazing Puerto Rican spoken word poet. Liz Acevedo, even earlier, Maida del Valle. And once I kind of started realizing that spoken word was not separate from page poetry and was not separate from, you know, writing in and of itself, I think the early writers for the Nuyorican poetry movement, so Miguel Piñero, Miguel Agarin, Tato Laviera, who were all page writers but also performed their work. And so I'm just in a great place where I'm meeting people that I looked up to who are becoming my mentors and kind of leading me on this journey, as well as looking back on those who started, kind of what I want to continue. I want anyone who comes to one of my shows to take away, I think, two things. So this is really corny, but this is now 3 years ago, I saw a t-shirt and I had a spiritual moment. They happen anytime, I swear, that's how I believe it. I saw a t-shirt that said community plus history equals pride. And so Puerto Ricans are super proud people. They're like, the flags are everywhere, they're all about it. And what that meant for me was that I needed those two things in order to feel holistic pride. And so what I want people to take out of my performances are those two things, is that I'm not just talking about my community, I also speak on history, on things that are happening. And I remember after I did a performance with my best friend, who were in a collective together, an Afro-Latino collective, someone came up to us and they said, you know, I didn't just enjoy your poem, I want to go research the things that you spoke about. And I think that was the greatest gift, is if someone comes up to you and they said, you referenced these things that happened in history that I've never heard about and I want to know more about them. And so I want someone to take away a desire for history, a history that's not told. That's why we speak on it. It's because all the things I talk about historically in my poems, I was never taught in school. No one was teaching, about Puerto Ricans and history and social movements and civil rights initiatives that they were a part of. And so I want people to take the history and also the community, the fact that there are many, many different kinds of Latinx people. I am just one kind. I'm also not fluent in Spanish, and so I'm trying to break down stereotypes and trying to find, and again, I don't have the answer either, but find what a true Latinx community is and what it looks like as just one of many. I'll always go with that answer, you know, they're all my children, they're all my favorites, but I always believe that when the question is asked, the first one that comes into your head, that's the answer. And so the first one, and my favorite, is this poem I wrote called Bomba. And it is, so bomba and plena are indigenous genres of music from Puerto Rico, and they come from Africa. And so it's a very clear link between Puerto Rico and Africa. And so the poem is called Bomba, and it's in 3 parts. So the first part is a song, the middle part is a rap verse, and then the last part is a poem. And they're all mixed together. And so I wrote this entire poem, and the day after, or not the day after, I think a week or 2 after I wrote it, Tato Laviera passed away. So Tato Laviera was a famous Puerto Rican poet. They wrote an obituary for him in the New York Times, and the obituary said that Tato Laviera's work was a mix of bomba, hip hop, and song, right? And so, again, I'm very spiritual. I believe everything happens for a reason, and the poem I had just written was attempting to do what Tato Laviera had done with his life. And in that moment of him passing and this poem having been created, I dedicated it to him. And it has always sat with me in that way, that poem is not just a poem, that it's a connection and a link to a history and a literary narrative that I am inextricably a part of, and I can't escape. And so it's my favorite because it's, I feel so happy when I do it because it's beyond me. I feel that all artists, whatever art you're doing, you're like you have to be egotistical a little bit. So you're always thinking about like, how will I be remembered and what will be remembered? And for me, right now in my life and my work, what I want people to remember and think about my work is that it added something new to the canon. I think a lot about, again, Afro-Boricua, I think a lot about lineage and a lot about descendants and where I'm coming from. And I feel very connected to the Nuyorican poetry movement, which started much earlier than when I was born. And I want to add to that canon to show that it's still happening, and it's still being reinvented and nuanced. And I want to not do the same things that already came before me. I'm not here to be repetitious. I'm here to remix and to redo and to renew. And so I want to be remembered for that, to add to the canon that is Latinx literature, Nuyorican literature, Puerto Rican literature.